Jared, Jordana, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
I'd love to just jump right into it. There is a lot of people that are single right now and that are not in relationships. Like, what do you think has made it more difficult to get into a relationship in this modern dating world?
I feel like every, generation thinks that they're like the worst generation to date in. Every city thinks it's the worst city to date in. We've been on tour and every city will tell you that it's awful here. It's better elsewhere.
As if there's a Garden of Eden somewhere.
The Garden of Eden for meeting people is college, probably, like in some ways. But I think it's all just like a trade-off. It's like you know what I mean? Like you think of the apps, everyone complains about the apps as they're the worst, but like I always think about what was the alternative? Like what were we doing before them? What was, how was it so much easier to connect before that? I don't think so. I think the problems were just different. Maybe you had not enough options. Is that better than having too many options? I don't think so. I think they're probably equal.
Right. And I would even say, to add on to that, like our podcast isn't about complaining that it's raining. It's about, hey, here's an umbrella for the rain. Here's what's going on. Here, let's acknowledge that the rain exists. Let's not be so hard on ourselves that there are obstacles that our parents never had to deal with and that we can't go to our parents and say, hey, what did you do when mom looked at your Instagram story every day? You couldn't do that. So, and it's also a weird vulnerability to admit that we notice these things. And vulnerability is difficult in dating because it's a lonely sport. It's you on your phone, and when you talk about it, you tell the story in the safest way possible. You probably leave out some of the truth because you make yourself the hero. And that makes everyone kind of hold back. And it's really easy to say to someone, people who view your stories don't matter. It's really easy to say because that's not a vulnerable position. It's really hard to go, this person whose face I see show up on my list watching my stories makes me feel a certain way. Angry, sad, into them, so I think like sitting in Sadville and talking about, how hard everything is. I don't know where that gets us.
I totally agree. I polled my audience on like what they wanted me to ask y'all, and they were like, how do we navigate this war zone of dating? Like, how do we get through this? I believe in being optimistic as well. I was just interested to get your feedback on like what your thoughts were on the current landscape.
It's also the most fun it's ever been. You can literally date from your toilet. Like, isn't that wonderful in a certain way? Yeah, there's pluses and minuses to everything. But there's never been a time in the history of the world that you could date from the comfort of your own home. That's good. It gets you out there, puts a toe in the water, makes a person who's not very social pretty social. What a nice crutch. But again, these produce different, environments that you have to admit to.
Speaking of like the online dating world and that most people are meeting online, again, I think like Jordana mentioned, there's trade-offs. Jared, like you mentioned the positives, you could date from your home, you could swipe while you're on the toilet, like you can meet people in way easier ways. Like how can they make the best of their online dating experience? Because I feel like so many people, they're optimistic, but then they get involved in it and it just seems like they just get so stressed out and burned out and they end up just kind of quitting until they're ready to go in again.
I think part of what our show does really well is it teaches you how to be a better consumer. Like Jared's saying, like we're not about like complaining about what currently is. It's more about how do you navigate these apps? How do you navigate the current dating scene and know how to figure out what you want from what you're seeing and also what you're giving. So I mean that can range from so many things. I think what we do is like if we'll also help you like interpret what someone is saying to what they're really saying. So just an example, like if someone starts off a dating app conversation by focusing entirely on looks, that person is probably looking to hook up. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking for a relationship, it's about, picking up on the signs that are not like the most obvious and sort of learning how to interpret them so you can be a better consumer. It's like learning how to read the Yelp reviews of a product you're looking to buy. I think we really just help people navigate that and figure out, because men and women do think about things often very differently. And we're really kind of like telling you what's going on behind the scenes of someone's thoughts.
And also, like, something that I've definitely learned from the show and from my own dating life is that, like, you got to live a hybrid lifestyle. It's got to be online and in person. If you're really making sure that everything in your life is comfy, cozy, and safe, then you're really not really getting out there, and you're not going to ever experience excitement. So maybe going on the date that you meet someone from the apps that you're not sure of yet. Hey, let's just get a drink tonight, like, because yeah, it's nice that you get the date from your couch, but it's not the whole thing. You got to get from the couch to the date. And here's the other problem. And if people want to live in the land of negativity, is that dating apps offer more. I think we encounter more people, which means more matches, which also means more getting turned down, which also means more disappointment, more excitement, more unhappiness. And you have to admit, like, when someone ghosts you on an app, that's not ghosting. That's just someone who had other things going on in their life, and it's not that personal to you. You have to take yourself less seriously. You have to be able to, like, roll with it and understand that, like, not every negative thing that happens to you was meant to be personally negative towards you.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself to have more success offline at times versus online because I'm like 5'9". So when I put 5'9" in like the height category, I feel like I get like at times I'll get like filtered out by women. And then when I'm in person, like they're able to meet to see my personality, learn about what I do or whatever, and they're more attracted to me, but because of that. But I feel like sometimes in online dating, people are just they're already casting a judgment without even really like knowing who you are, which makes things tough. But you also, I think, you have to be even more careful about how you position your profile, what you write to people, and stuff like that.
My dad used to always say this a lot. He still says it. You're not that smart, and everyone's pretty much the same as you. You're not that special. So, the same way that you're getting judged for 5'9", you are also judging others for things that you have categorized and you are looking towards. It's interesting to hear your perspective, because right now you're speaking from a perspective of, I'm not seeing the people I should be seeing. But it's really goes both ways. Like, you are looking at other people's profiles too. You are more, and I said this in my special. I talk about it on my special. I said I said no to a Darlene. It didn't matter. I was like, I'm not dating a woman with the name Darlene. Darlene is representative of so many things. Darlene could be brown hair, blonde hair. It could be, height. It could be, it could be clothing. It could be area of town they live in. So yes, leaving the house is always better, and catching someone's vibe is always better. But again, trade offs. You're also going to lose the anonymity of a dating app. You're also going to lose the ability to never get turned down, because on a dating app, you never get turned down, right? You never feel disappointment on a dating app. You swipe right, that's a yes. And if you get a match right away, you say, of course. You swipe right, you don't get a match right away. What do you say? They haven't seen me yet. So apps were created by male nerds who had low social abilities and didn't want to leave the house. So they created a way to meet women without ever getting turned down. So, yes, you, Doug, a striking guy, good looking, confident. If you left the house, you're going to have a better time outside of the house than on the app created for someone not like you. You have a personality, you go out. So the apps aren't really made for someone who, like, they're more of a crutch for someone who has the ability to go and leave that. Some people need the apps, and I agree with that. That's great that it can help them. But sometimes we lean too hard on the crutch that maybe isn't necessary for us.
No, I'm glad you kind of called me out on seeing the one side of the thing too, because I think that's an important thing too that people miss sometimes is there's a lot of content out there in the dating sphere, and it's all about the partner. Can this person meet my needs? What do they have that I want? Like all these things. And you forget to like sometimes look in the mirror and say, well, wait a second, like what about me? So, I appreciate you kind of like calling me out on that.
I'm 5'8". I mean, I'm not thinking of all the people I don't see. I'm dealing with the people that I do see.
We all want to judge, and we all don't want to be judged.
Right.
For sure, for sure. I'd love to give each of your perspectives. I have like a split audience between male and female. What do you think are some of the things that the not so obvious things that give the people the ick, like from a male perspective and from a female perspective?
Well, Jared would say that men don't get the ick.
That's my opinion.
I think for women, and it sounds more disgusting to say it this way, which is why we call it the ick, is the thing that makes someone seem less masculine, is a thing that makes someone seem like they're not getting social cues or they're, not like the alpha person in the room. And I think that a lot of the time, like when you hear people describe the icks, that's what it sounds like. But no one's going to say that because that's like not really socially acceptable in this day and age. But most of the ones that I hear sort of, I think, lean towards that description.
Like, what are a few examples?
I just read an article about it. It's like when if you clap when the plane lands, you're not getting social cues. You're like a little bit of a social outcast. I'll give you mine. It's when when someone intensely slathers sunscreen all over their body. It's a little emasculating in me, to me. I mean, I don't. That's not, you know what I mean. Like you can't say it's less socially acceptable to say it that way. But I think a lot of these things feel that way, or just someone like not conforming to something that you would socially think makes them feel like more dominant.
So to add on to that, the ick usually happens after a lot of like, give them a chance. Give them a chance. Let me give it a chance. Let me give it a chance. And the ick is usually the straw that broke the camel's back. So it always feels silly, like slathering suntan lotion, but I don't think anyone starts at being icked out by their suntan lotion. It starts with a friend going, go out with them, give them a chance. And then they go, they're great on paper, right? And then they go, that's it. I've had enough. I just saw him put on suntan lotion. I had someone tell me that they got the ick because the person was trying to merge into traffic and no one would let them in.
It's non-dominant.
Not dominant, a little bit, a little bit laid back, not a manly person, but also it doesn't start there. They don't, no one says, let me see you get on the highway, then I'll go on the date with you. And I think I always say this, one person's ick is another person's husband, because everyone that I would poll, you'd be like, oh, what's your ick? And then they'd say, well, men wearing sandals with jeans. And then there'd be a woman to the right who was with a guy in sandals and jeans. So, and she's rubbing his leg going, you look good in them. So it's like,
I think that women do this thing more than men. Men are not like, she's great on paper. I'm not that into her, but I'll keep going out with her. I rarely hear that. Like, I just, her stats are amazing. I think there's less of a time constraint. I think women are like, all right, I've got this limited window of time to meet someone, or at least that's how it feels in their head. So it's like, this guy checks a lot of these boxes. I should give him a chance. I should go, which maybe makes you date someone for longer than you would when you're really not that interested in them. And I think that men don't really date for the on paper sell.
yeah, it would take a lot for me to leave the house without my penis agreeing to leave too, if I'm to be totally honest. And I think a lot of women will go, you know what, I might fall for him and become attracted. And we have to like admit to these differences while also understanding that like it's a little bit animalistic, it's a little bit unfair. It's not fair that someone, the idea that someone might have been broken up with because they couldn't merge onto the highway, you go, well, what a mean, unfair person. It's not just that. It was never just that.
So I'd love to hear each of your thoughts. Like Jared, you go first. Like, what's been a big area of growth for you, like in your dating life over the last year or two?
Oh, it's giving myself to the process of dating. I think that's very hard, is to let go and not look ahead and not say, well, could I be with this person the rest of my life? What about having a nice third date and seeing how it goes? I would say it was a hard thing for me to get past date one. What makes date one so special to get to date two? Sometimes it was just a nice meeting and maybe you should go on date two. And I think that's, Jordana knows, like that's been something I've been trying to like work through where you go, I think there's a male thing that this goddess is going to come into your life, and suddenly you're going to go, oh, I got to drop everything to be with this person. And I think that's a little bit in the land of Disney and fantasy. I think you can say that years later when you're married, you go, that was the one that made me drop everything. It's easier said that at that point.
Jordana, how about like you? Like, what's been? I mean, I know obviously you're married now, but what was like a big area of growth for you in your dating life that like led to you, now being happily married?
I think like, no one it doesn't feel romantic to say that relationships are work, but they are. And I also think there's this sense of like when you're in a relationship, you always think that like you're the easiest person to be in a relationship with and the other person has all these issues. And I think widening your perspective there to say, like looking at yourself is so much harder than looking at others. And I think that you get back what you give in relationships. So if you want someone to be more a certain way, if you start that, that's what you're going to get. If you like or not, you're not changing, but you're thinking the other person's going to change. That's not really going to happen.
Do you think, given all the great content, podcasts like yours, where you talk openly about dating, relationships, and just kind of the dynamics of all that, and then everything on social media, that sometimes I mean, people can be too picky because now they're like, okay, like Jared said, there's more on dating apps where it's like, all right, am I actually uninterested in this person, or I just want more and want to see what the next best thing is? Do you think that like people are too picky now?
I think there's like everyone has their own sort of scale of like cost benefit analysis, right? And so the pickier you are, the less options you have. But that also like the more comfortable you are with being alone and the happier you are being alone, the pickier you can be. It's like with anything else on like the free capitalist market. Like, you're as picky as you are okay with being single. If I want to be in a relationship really bad, I'm going to figure out how to like get over certain superficial things that I'm picky about. If it doesn't bother me to be single, then I'm going to dump someone because they use the wrong form of your. That's my right. So I think like too picky is really just about like how bad you want it. Just like anything else. If I'm looking for like a couch, I might be too picky if all the ones someone sends me. But if I'm okay with waiting or not having a couch, I can be as picky as I want to be.
To add on to that, our lives are more comfortable alone now than they were before. Like you got your phone. I've always said someone's got to like make my phone add to my phone. I get from my phone, and we all do, and it's maybe sad to admit, but you get a dopamine hit from getting the notifications from certain apps that kind of take the place of a personal relationship. You have the online you that gets a nice little bump, and then you get and then you, again, to go back to Jordana was saying, like sometimes you're just okay with it, and you go, my house is comfortable, I live well. Someone's got to make this better. I ain't going backwards, and that's been my issue. Like at 39 and single, like I don't want to move backwards to move forwards. So I don't want like my life that I enjoy right now to get worse or to be different in a way that I'm not excited about. So and you have the luxury of that because you go, listen, I'll listen to my podcast, I'll zone out, like I'll watch my movie. I got every streaming service, I've got every movie I could ever want. I got a great couch. What you got to make me want to leave the couch. So I think most people, it's not even picky. It's just I gotta want to leave. I gotta be motivated.
I mean, I heard a quote years ago that's always stuck with me. That's like people in your life are either assets or liabilities, and it's like it just seems like from your perspective, Jared, and the kind of the way that I see it, and obviously I think Jordana, you'd felt this way as well. Is like you want when you're dating somebody, or you're married to somebody, they better be an asset in your life and not a liability for you to get off the couch.
And that's a privilege if you can afford. Like people got married for very different reasons when our parents and our grandparents got married. Sometimes it was like a survival method. Sometimes it was, an affordability thing. The people stay in marriages because of those things. They go, well, I can't afford to get divorced. So I'll make this work. So the longer you stay single, the more you go, I got a good handle on what I got going here. I got to find a real partner who's like makes this whole thing even better than I got it now. Single's not a negative. Single to me is just single. It's not, positive or negative. It's just who you are.
And back to that assets and liabilities thing, I don't think you could ever find someone who would never be a liability to you in any way at any point. Obviously, like on the whole, you want someone to be additive, but everyone's annoying. I don't know any couples where the person never had to do anything they didn't want to do for being in the relationship.
Yeah, I meant as a whole. I didn't mean like just. I mean, obviously, moment by moment. Like I know I'm annoying.
A net positive.
Right. Yeah, net positive.
Like I'm happy to admit all of my like personal red flags to people when I'm dating them. Like this is what you're gonna get when you're with me. I'm gonna be this, that, and the other.
I think when I like debate getting into a relationship, dating someone, am I willing to make changes that I need to make for this person? And that's when people say, well, I'm not ready. It's like, well, you're ready. You're just not ready to make these changes. Like you're an adult, you would work it out, but how willing are you to like collaborate with someone? I think about that all the time. Like relationships are collaborations or cooperations, and I think like anyone, my parents are still together. I watch them and they have fights and they scream and they yell and I see how hard it is. I got to be ready for that fight. And I think that for me, like that's where I like get down on myself. I go, man, I'm opting out of the fight. I'm opting out of the exhaustion. I'm opting for laziness, when I stay single sometimes. Because life is right now no waves. And just like Jordana said, you bring someone else in, there's going to be waves.
No doubt. So one of the things that, again, I think people have a hard time with is like navigating the single life. Where Jared, I heard you say a minute ago, like being single is great. It gives you all these amazing things, and then there's trade-offs that that you don't get from being in a relationship. And being in a relationship obviously has its own benefits. Like, what have you done recently or in the last several years while being single to just embrace the fact that you are single and not letting it like bring you down?
Every time I fly back on a flight, not the first one out, I think that is a product of being single. Like anytime I fly somewhere and I have the luxury of being like, I'll go back when I go back. If the flight gets delayed, who cares? Talk to my, married friends. And when you go, especially touring comedians who are married with kids, all they want, get me home because they have something to get home to. So that's an amazing, loving thing, but it's also amazing and wonderful that I have the calm of a Sunday. I got nothing to get back to, good and bad, pluses and minuses. No hugs when I return, but no, I'm also not disappointing someone who wanted to hug me when I got back. I'm like a poet. That was real poetry. Right.
That was. We're gonna clip that for you, and you can put.
Thank you. That's my new Hinge profile. No hugs at home, but looking for the right hug at home.
Because you can use videos now on Hinge, right? Or is it audio?
I saw the audio one, which I love. I love the audio one because, again, it goes to Jordana, what she was saying about awareness. You can really find out how unaware someone is by the audio they use on their dating profile. It really, right away, what people want to hear, how they want to hear it, because then people do their like radio voice too. You can hear people change their voice a little bit. And like the beauty of us being podcasters is we know what we sound like. We can't fake it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Jordana, what's your advice to some of your single friends that come to you and that are kind of wanting to be in a relationship but haven't found that person yet? How can they be more comfortable just being single? I mean, Jared mentioned what helps him.
What I like to do is zoom out and think, and I think that a lot of women are very timeline obsessed, as I was as well. And to say, like, if you knew that you would meet someone eventually, how would you be acting now? How would you live right now? Let's say someone told you you'd meet someone in 2 years. What would you be doing? Because I think about that with myself. I was so worried about never meeting anyone. And now I look back, I'm like, if I had known I was going to meet my husband when I did, like, how much more fun would I have had? How much more would I live in the moment? How much more would I relax and be a better dater to anyone I was going out with? It's obviously easier advice to hear than to take, but I think almost anyone who's gotten to the other side will tell you like to live in the moment as much as you can and to enjoy the phase of life that you're in and at the time that you're in it is like the biggest gift you could give yourself. And, not to say you can't feel bad every now and then.
To add on to that, to be good to yourself and do things, here's a really easy way to do that. Hang out with your friends and your family. Like, I think the natural way to go is to not want to be the third wheel, not want to want to make sure you're at home. So if a date happens at home, you don't miss it, or you don't want to miss, you're missing nothing. Hang with your friends and family, because here are the people that you're going to want. If you're looking for a relationship, you're sad being single, your best assets are your friends and family. They're the ones that if they like you and they enjoy time with you, then you're the first name they'll think of when they find a single person. And not that you should say to them, who are your single friends? That's not fun for your friends and family. Hang with them, enjoy their company, because then they're going to go, oh my God, I met a girl today. You got to meet this girl. She's awesome. You're awesome. Let me put you together. You have to be a fix-upable entity. And people don't fix up sad and annoying. They fix up fun and exciting. And your friends don't want to be bogged down by you. They're your friends. They don't owe you anything. They like you. So hang out with your friends. I mean, I sound like 100-year-old man. Hang out with your friends. But I think people forget that. Like, I forget that. I have friends in the city. I'm like, I'll see you another time. And then I go drink alone at a bar. I'm like, I could have gone out with them and enjoyed their company and really enjoyed life in the way Jordana's talking.
Fun and exciting. Yeah, I'm saying like that's because that's how you would be if you felt like it was all going to work out. If you felt like in the end, like this was your time to be single, that you'll never get back. You'd be fun and excited.
And your married friends will inevitably go, who you seeing? And you got to go, no one. I'm as single as it gets. I'm on the apps. They're okay. You got to, positivity is such a powerful thing. And I'm on the apps. They're okay. Haven't met anyone yet. Just having fun. You got anyone? No, not really. But you're the first name I'm going to think of because I like hanging out with you.
So, Jared, you mentioned in your special, which I still can't stop laughing about, that you wouldn't date a Darlene. You were like, Darlene is somebody that wouldn't let me sneak tequila in like a movie theater and would make you take your shoes off or something like that. You're like, anybody who has the name of like the 50s is out for you. Other than like just that and like the photo of somebody, like generally speaking, like what are some things that you'll see on a woman's profile that'll make you swipe left?
Anything that are you statements. I think you statements on a dating profile are all bad ideas, because that is displacing vulnerability to the other person and not yourself. So when you write, you better be fun, you better not take dating too seriously, you better be, whatever. That's you just telling why. Where are you? Where are you being vulnerable? Where's your personality? That's you better be a funny person. I like I statements, and I like when someone's fun and I statements on a dating app. That's a swipe right. Swipe left is you do this, you do that. To me, that's not someone playing the game.
Like, what do you think people can do to make their dating profiles just better? Like, what are some common things that you see? Like,
We give dating app makeovers all the time at our live shows. There's two things I notice from profiles. We both have talked about this to no ends. Men make profiles for other men. It's like they're rushing a fraternity.
a lot of people get eager to get back into the dating world right after like a breakup because they feel like that can be sometimes the thing that helps them get over their ex, which I think can, but obviously that has its own set of issues. Like, would have been some go-tos for each of you for effectively dealing with a breakup?
I think what you were Jared was saying before about hanging out with your friends and family is like probably still the best advice there, because those are the people who like love you, who know you, who like can remind you of like how great you are. I think a lot of these things depend on like the situations of the breakup, like the specifics there about like what you should do, what you shouldn't do. How devastated are you? Were you over this for a long time? People have very strong feelings about like when to date and how to date, and it's such an individual thing. I don't know if there's like a go-to response.
To what Jordana said, I think towards the end of a relationship too, you don't act like yourself. You're like kind of tiptoeing around someone. You're trying to make someone else happy. You're avoidant. And the hanging with friends and family, like you have to like readjust. You have to get back to who you are. Like I think like you have to remember what makes you who you are. And then, I don't know. I've found that no one is going to solve my problems except me. And I had this like dream that I get into a relationship and then oh, I'd be living with someone and I'd be healthier because I'm living with someone. And I was eating at night the same way I was eating at night before a girlfriend than with a girlfriend. So it's like I still had nighttime eating issues with a girlfriend. Funny, that person didn't change me. And so, that includes, speaking to loved ones, and some people, therapy helps them to like talk those things out. Sometimes a relationship makes you go, "Oh, that's what I was doing." That's hard to like come to terms with.
Obviously, so many people listen to your show and are getting better in their relationships or getting better with dating or improving their own self-worth by listening to your podcast. What have been some like lessons that each of you have learned from hosting the podcast?
I think I've learned a lot from Jared about the way that men think about situations that I think about very differently for. So I think that's very grateful for that. I think that like even, I wish I had this podcast when I was dating, because I think just learning to like think about dating and evaluating people based on whether you like them, dating like with an empowerment, dating to like not thinking less about what you have to do to make someone like you and more about if you actually like this person, and sort of like learning to intuitively date and analyze people is like a huge skill. So that's me. That's what I've learned.
I've definitely learned from Jordana just like the idea, I think a lot of guys, especially younger men, like in my 20s, this is all fun and games. Like dating's fun, and you can make fun of it. It can be joked about. I think the thing you realize is like to some people, and doesn't matter gender, it just that's the hardest thing they're dealing with. They're killing it in every other phase of their life, and it's this one thing that like that you have to respect that someone's going through it with. And you have to respect that like you on a dating app acting like a clown, might really ruin someone's day. So I think that's like something I've realized definitely from hearing the emails, and like we make it as fun as possible, but when Jordana and I talk about someone's problem, we talk about it and we have fun with it. But like we're always going to be honest and, as vulnerable and honest as possible.
Jared, what are some of your like main values you're looking for or main things you're looking for in a partner?
I like a pain in the ass. I like when someone's got, strong opinions, owns their stance, hates every table at the restaurant. I want like someone who you get to the restaurant, they're like they know this place is no good. I enjoy that. But that's like it's to me that's taste. I like when someone has taste.
Jordana, what helped you like identify what you were looking for in a relationship before you met your partner now?
I think all the bad partners that I had helped me figure out or I mean, I would say bad, but all the people that I didn't wind up with. To me, if you learn something from a 3 month or 2 dates with someone, that's a good experience because you figure out what you like. I remember going out with some guys. I was like, I really like this about them. I'm going to look for that in the next person. But they didn't have this other thing. So now I can like, you know what I mean? Anything that gives you more taste, I think, is a good experience, even if it doesn't end up being someone you're with long term.
Jared, what's your dating life been like recently?
It's been pretty good. I'm taking it easy. I'm off the apps. I haven't been on the apps, and I'm just again, like I've kind of like been pretty zen about it. I'm willing to, I've been hanging out a lot with my family, so that's made it nice, and like kind of taking my own advice, hang with my family, hang with my friends, and letting things kind of like, come to me a little bit, which is a privilege, and it's been, I'm having fun. I gotta say, I'm not really putting a lot of pressure on.
When you've used the apps, which one has been the most successful for you?
I think the more writing, the better. I think the more Hinge having the prompts, I really do think. I think like Raya. I remember I was on Raya, and that's like the one where you have to apply to, and it's like a nightclub that everyone wants to get into, but no one dances at.
Right. Once you're in, it kind of sucks, and you're like, why did I wait online?
Right? Why did I wait for this? What did I need this for? So whenever there's more writing, I think because again, like I think when you want to make a profile, like you want as many things to turn people away as it would turn people on. So when you're writing things, it's like, oh, this thing that's so specific, uber niche. Yeah, that's you. You're specific. Your niche. So I think like when people go, and then what it ends up being is if someone writes back to it, you go, oh, they get it. And if someone doesn't, they put aside your super niche thing and they just say, hey, how was your weekend to your picture? You go, it's a little bit less boring. It's a little less motivating to get you off the couch, as we talked about before, So sometimes we're our own worst enemy. So maybe I think a lot of people make their profiles so vanilla that they forget, like, if you just put some Rocky Road in there, someone would go, I love Rocky Road. And you go, I do too. Oh my God, we got to meet.
Right. Well, what's the best way to, like, if you talk about too many options, what's the best way to reduce options? It's by being more of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Be the most 5'9" you can be.
That's me. There we go. Found myself at times to be picky and to have too high of standards. At times it might be higher than I should. And I think part of it is due to my previous dating history. And I think also part of it is like because I've read the books and I've had the people on the podcast and I've talked to people about, what relationships can look like and how healthy communication looks like and all these things. And I'm like, oh, if it doesn't fit all these boxes, then it's not a go. And I think that's something that I've had to work on over the last couple of years is like the best, way to get better at dating isn't to read the book. It's to put yourself out there and just get the reps in.
You got to play in traffic if you want to be hit, So that's my dad used to say that all the time. You got to play in traffic. It's messy. You're going to experience disappointment. You're going to experience failure, but you don't experience success unless you put yourself out to fail, So all of these things, it's like the problem with dating is the minute you get into hypotheticals and you remove yourself from it, when you get out of it, is the minute you almost become too afraid to get in the water. Like it's too cold. And I talk about in the special. The idea of saying no to a Darlene is me being afraid of meeting someone that I think has a low probability of working out. And so I just don't even try in the first place. So I think that, these are all, everyone's going through these issues too. It's not like, we're not alone. And that's, the beauty of a podcast is you can, especially ones that like are nuanced and talk these things out and hear specific problems that are true and real instead of these hypotheticals of all people are doing this and all people are doing that. Like the minute you get into that game is the minute you start believing that the boogeyman is living outside waiting for you.
Question about being anxious when dating. Like some people, they get like anxiety when they're dating somebody that they like or they just met somebody. I'd love to hear each of your thoughts on how somebody can like not let that like get in the way of having a good experience with somebody.
I think kind of like it's sort of the same advice about the person who's upset that they're single. It's like, feeling not if you're betting with your rent money, you're probably going to lose. If you're betting for fun, like it's going to be a lot more enjoyable. So I think that obviously again, easier said than done, but it's also about dating people who make you less anxious. That's something that's important to look forward to. A lot of anxious daters are sort of like are dating people who are withholding. And so that's who they're picking. So I think now analyzing why do I pick these people? Am I bored? Do I find people who are consistent and interested in me boring? I think that's a lot of it too.
Also, to add on to that, because I think Jordana's right. If you're dating someone that's making you feel anxious, how about you tell them, hey, I feel anxious about this because I'm starting to like you and I'm hoping that you're on the same page. Someone withholding who's not on the same page, they're going to end it pretty quickly. We call that on our podcast the reveal. Instead of like, what are we? It's here's how I feel. Here's what I'm doing about it. Just wanted to let you know. And when you say that, people either hug you tight and hold on for dear life, or they say, gonna set you off to sea because I don't want to deal with it.
Which people are scared of, and they think that's the reveal not working, but it's actually the reveal working even more. You're wasting less time on something that was never going to be anything.
And so when having hard conversations like this, do you find it's always best just to use I statements? Like Jared, I heard you say that when you're on a dating app and somebody says you statements, it's unattractive. Do you think that's the same goes for when you're trying to express yourself authentically when dating somebody?
That's definitely something I've learned, especially like keep it to you. If you keep it to you,
You can't fight that. You can't argue with that. Yeah.
Right. You got to keep it to you. It's and keep it. I feel this. I feel that. And like, you know what? Most people aren't like sociopaths. Most people don't want to be with someone who is not where they are. They don't want to sleep next to someone who likes them more than they like the person. Nature takes its course. So when you say I statements, the other person that kind of produces the other person's I statement. And listen, people want answers right away, and I can't promise that. When you say I like you and I'm deleting all my apps to focus on this, that other person isn't getting scared away, but they are being forced to admit to where they are as well.
Jordana, any additional thoughts on that?
I think he said that pretty well. I think it's about, again, like not being, you have to be afraid to lose something that's okay to get something that's great. And the only relationship anxiety comes from a lack of communication. I think almost every single time. And people are afraid to lose something that's okay. So that's why they don't say anything, or they try to act the way that they think the person wants them to act. And that just never really works.
Or they think okay can get to great, which usually isn't the case. Sometimes,
Rarely. Yeah.
rarely. This is what it is.
Obviously, there's been a push for men to open up more and be more vulnerable and express their emotions more. Say something's bothering me in a relationship, and maybe I think it's a big deal. Maybe the other person doesn't think it's that big of a deal, and I express why it's bothering me. Do you think I'm putting myself at risk of looking less masculine for expressing that?
No, I think that's hot. I think like that's like an adult relationship. And I think someone who's turned off by that is not looking for an adult relationship. Someone who's turned off by someone stating their needs is looking for a game. And I mean, that's fine. That's a way of dating too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's if you are expressing what you want and what you need in the same way, I think it might turn off a man to say that. If I went on 3 dates with you and I said I'm deleting the apps, I don't think someone would say it's a gendered thing to be turned off by that if you're not in the same place. If you're into someone and they tell you that they're into you, then I don't think that that's emasculating at all. I think like the things that are annoying about the way that like the woman would find annoying about the way a man would act are the same things that would annoy a man about a way a woman acted in like the way that you're describing. I think if I were constantly complaining about something, I would also be thought of as irritating.
I guess like a male thing would be like jealousy, or like jealousy of your girlfriend hanging out with another guy. I like to make a more concrete example. You hang out with a bunch of guys. If you said to that woman, "Hey, I feel jealous. I feel upset." You wouldn't probably say I feel jealous, but I feel upset when you hang out with a bunch of other guys. And she was like, "Well, why don't you come with us and hang out with us and see that this is like these are my brothers?" I think that to me is like we're working on there we go. We're taking now. I'm sitting there, and then if you go out together and you see they're hugging and to create a more thorough example, they're hugging and they're not acting like brother and sister. They're acting in a way. Now you have concrete examples to come and discuss with your girlfriend. Hey, you guys were like kissing each other. Again, I'm making up examples. I don't know a specific example, but if you then went on that hangout and you go, oh, they are cool guys, and they all brought you in and said they became your friend, the jealousy would go away. And if you still felt jealous, you would have to, and you had nothing concrete to bring back to your girlfriend. At that point, I would understand as someone going, wow, he can't even handle how nice all those guys were to him that I consider brothers. You know what I mean? Like I think like all these things, like the emotional stuff is just like, hey, I feel this way when that happens. Okay. And if someone works with you, then you usually work through it. But when someone goes, well, stop being so jealous, and I'm not going to introduce you to those friends, then you go, okay, well, now I have a concrete example. You won't even introduce me to these people. I have a right to be jealous. I have a right to not feel great. So, like, I'm making up examples, but like,
I think for both sexes, insecurity is big turnoff. Confidence is, I think, the number one erotic turn on for any gender, any person who's dating. So all those things that you're describing also are just like symbols of like insecurity. Like you don't feel confident. You don't feel, but I agree with what you said to counteract them.
right. If I had a, if again, if I was hanging out with all my girlfriends and my actual girlfriend was like, "What? Who are these people?" I would want them to hang out with her.
If you had nothing to hide.
Right. Right.
Right, and you sound confident when you're able to speak your mind and say, "I feel this when this happens," and then when that person also explains in a healthy way with some sort of solution, then it's on you to be like, "Okay, cool, like, let's just see where this goes." But if you're like, "No, I don't wanna meet your people anyway," then it's that sign of insecurity.
It's all to say that if you're feeling something, say something. Like that's and when someone doesn't really want to acknowledge that, then something is going wrong. Like
And Doug, to your point about like, I think that when you feel something and you don't say something, it always comes out and it comes out in a worse, more insecure seeming way than if you say something normal. It's like your person knows how to communicate their needs and what they're looking for. And an insecure person pretends they don't have any needs and then secretly gets really annoyed and then blows up in a way like they do on Love is Blind.
I would love to get your thoughts as we kind of close out on reality TV. So, like, there's so many dating reality TV shows. Love is Blind, The Bachelor. I know you both love your fix of reality TV. Just curious to see like what your thoughts are on the current like reality TV dating scene and like how can people? Because I mean, I feel like one of the things like years ago was people had this idea that dating was going to be like a Hallmark movie, right? And now we know it's not. There's waves and there's tons of conflict that comes with that. How can people not get so wrapped up in the reality TV dating scene and actually separate that from the reality of dating?
I don't know. I think of like The Bachelor to be like professional wrestling. Like it's not real, but they got to take the bumps. Like you can't fake jumping off the top rope in the same way you can't fake going for a first kiss or asking someone on a date or breaking up with someone. And those are all things you have to do on screen. I think if someone was like to look at reality TV show dating and think that that's real, I would be like, I think you got to reassess how you watch TV in general.
Reality TV serves a purpose of entertainment and to make you feel better about your own life because it's not, at least you're not doing what these people are doing. I think, and if you're taking it for like, this is what it's dating is like, or this is what, like, this is how to date, or this is how to be, I think I agree. I think you've got bigger issues.
So you don't think people can just like fall in love and get married without seeing each other?
They can. I think what it proves is that it can happen in any way. That's why when we talk about someone's dating issue, like what's the context? What's the nuance? I don't think anyone on a dating show goes, "This is a normal way to meet." Like they go, "This is crazy." And they all say that.
It's the normal way to get a lot of Instagram followers.
Right. And then the crazy part would be to get love out of
And if you happen, sometimes you happen to just like, again, like a broken clock is right twice a day. Like it doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just not really the point.
it. Right. I love dissecting a dating show because of the small moments. Like, also the moments of someone, there's incentive. Do you choose love or are you here for other reasons? Are you actually here for the craziest thing, which is actually love? So, those are the fun things to like talk about. I think watching a dating show with your partner is like a great way to get to know your partner. I think it's a great way to talk about the small moments because you're experiencing them in real life and they're experiencing them on TV. So,
And especially for The Bachelor, I'll be like, you never take me to a cliffside to make me a romantic dinner. Why don't you do that?
where's our helicopter date?
Where's our double date with Travis and Taylor?
Exactly.
Well, thank you both for coming on. I really appreciated this conversation. It was actually refreshing because it was like different than the typical like relationship dating podcast I have where there wasn't like absolute answers and we kind of broke it down into specific scenarios and also challenged me on my own perspective and thought process as it relates to all this. So thank you both.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
So where can people listen to the pods if they're not already? Where can people connect with you both on social media?
Well, it's the U Up podcast. It's every Wednesday and Sunday. We do 2 episodes a week. We have benefits, subscriber episodes. It's a whole universe, and we're on YouTube. We want people to go check out our YouTube.
Betches.co/YouTube.
Betches.co/YouTube. There it is. Yeah, the U Up podcast, like a U Up text. And there's an Instagram account, u.up.podcasts. It's all there. There's so much to go through, and we've got 6 years of episodes. There's so much to listen to. We have guests and all that stuff. So
yeah, you're in luck if you haven't heard us before. Got a lot of content to get through.
Yeah, like what, over 500, almost 600 episodes or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
We have said it all, and we've said it twice.
That's awesome. Well, I'll be sure to include the links to that stuff in the show notes. And thank you both once again for coming on.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I really think you're going to like this video as well. I'll see you there.